little bit about myself, like you said. You know all of this already. And so, with a broader audience, I mean, just put your hand up. I mean, who is concerned about the future of Flutter? Don't be shy. I mean, if you're concerned, just put your hand up. See, Justin, I told you, we don't need discussion. Nobody's concerned about the future of Flutter. Okay, anyways, so let's move on. Why even this session, right? So let's
how I feel about Google laying off 6% of its workforce and cutting most of the Flutter, Dart, and Python teams. This is super concerning considering I'm one of the biggest Flutterflow advocates on the internet, on YouTube, and now Flutter just killed itself inside of Google. For those of you who don't know, Flutter is an open source mobile app development framework that's built and maintained by Google. Google built Flutter, which is a framework. A framework is a toolbox. And one of the tools inside of that toolbox is a programming language called Dart. Dart is now being cut back by Google. Lots of big companies are laying off, but for Google to lay off its core team for Flutter, Dart, and Python is very concerning. They didn't disclose the specifics, but Google has laid off a ton of people, and they're doing.
So that's enough for now. We'll come back to this guy very soon. But that's the core part of the problem, right? I mean, when this news came out, and it is no, surprise to anyone in the last 2-3 years about how much of fluff that all these big companies are cutting down. I mean, people went on a big hiring spree during COVID, and then their claim right now is that they're cutting off all the fat, so to speak, from all the hiring that they did back in the day, right? So Google is no stranger to layoffs. Everyone in the valley is laying off. Microsoft is laying off. Salesforce is laying off. So this shouldn't be any surprise. Just that because it is the Dart team, because it is the Python team, the community is worried about, is Google going to shut down Flutter, so to speak, right? So this guy is not alone. So if you see other posts that are out there, whether it is Hacker News or other aspects of social media, if you will, people are talking about, what's going to happen? What is my future as a Flutter developer going to be in this particular ecosystem? Right? So there's a lot of buzz, or at least there was a lot of buzz that happened 4 to 6 weeks ago before Google I/O happened. I'm sure all of you know what Google I/O is. It is the biggest event that Google hosts every year in London. And this happened just a few days before that, right? And the reason I put this one here is, this is not even recent. See the title, it says, will Google discontinue Flutter? And this conversation happened almost 2 years ago, So this is an ongoing topic forever, because if it is open source, if it is considered like a cost center, right? Because Google is not making money out of Flutter or Dart, right? They are just investing money into it and helping you build that particular, and you build off of it. What they get out of it is very indirectly sales coming in, not direct sales coming in because of that. So the point I wanted to make here is, this is going to keep continuing to happen. Right? People are going to continue to say, what will happen to Flutter? What will happen to Google? That sort of thing. So let's ask Google itself. What do they have to say about it? Are they sitting idle and not answering this particular question? So they did answer. So Kevin Moore, I don't know how many of you know him, follow him on X. He's one of the senior product managers at Google for Flutter. He spoke at Google I/O as well. I have a video coming up. So see what he has to say. We'll go through this. Right? He's saying this time they still trending on I/O just because it just happened to be I/O. So we know you all care so much. You all means the community cares so much about the ecosystem we built. You know this. We get it. And you're betting on Flutter and Dart. So am I. So is Google. It can't come from a better source, right? I mean, he is the product manager for Google, who is leading all the efforts for at least a certain part of Flutter. So that is Kevin. And Michael, He's actually based in Denmark, and he is the guy when it comes to Dart, which is the underlying technology for Flutter, right? And he puts it right there in black and white. If you read this, he says there's so much misinformation circulating, okay? And he wants to clarify a few things. There's absolutely no strategy changes, no change in team size. The people who are let go were part of DevOps. And in DevOps, you are continuously optimizing people. So the people who were let go were, and some of it, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this as well. I mean, from coming from India, right? A lot of these roles were actually moved to India from a cost center perspective. Not just in Flutter and Dart, but in other parts of Google as well. People have been offshoring those efforts into India or Mexico or close to the US offshoring centers. Then he's also saying 2024 roadmap continues, nothing changes, right? Their investments with the rest of the team that is there is going to continue. So he's saying he just wants to get away from this noise and get back into what he used to do, right? So it cannot come from a better source than these two people, Kevin and Michael, right? Because these guys are the ones who are driving this event. Okay, so this should give you confidence, right? I mean, if you don't trust these guys, nothing else will give you confidence, right? And this is something from the community, So this guy, Mauri Das, is one of the GDEs, and he's based in a lot of GDE. I mean, I was speaking to somebody about GDEs during the week. They are really the ambassadors, right? Because it's an open source community. Not everyone from Google is able to talk to each one of you in the community. I wish the next time I'm here, let's say in a year or a few months, I wish some of you are at least pursuing to become a GDE. So that'll be really good. And the GDEs are the ones who really do the work in trying to educate the ecosystem on what is the latest and greatest, and be the bridge or the liaison, if you will, between Google and the community, if you will. Okay. So other use of thought, right? So one of the things that is super important about Flutter and anything that is for the community is the fact that it is open source, right? All of you can put in PRs. All of you can put in enhancement requests based on what you want to see in the tool. All of you can raise issues, right? So irrespective of who is owning it, if it becomes open source, that's the beauty of the open source project, right? I mean, Google doesn't own it. I mean, yes, they take the lead on it, but at the end of the day, it's an open source UI framework, right? That is what that matters, really. So even if Google were to say in the worst case, I'm going to shut this down, I don't want ownership of this, nobody's going to pull this off of GitHub, right? I mean, the community still owns it. I mean, you can go and see at any point in time how many PRs are there, how many issues are there, how many enhancement requests are there. And people find a lot of joy if their PR is merged into their code base, right? So it belongs really to the community. That is how it was architected as well. But somebody needs to take the lead on it, so Google took the lead on it, right? But this belongs to each one of you as much as anyone else in the community, if you will. So Flutter open source and Dart open source belongs to each one of you. So that is super important. And I think some of you mentioned about Flutter Flow, right? So Flutter Flow is becoming very popular these days, right? And what they're trying to do is to bridge the gap between adoption and learning part, right? So in Flutter Flow, you can drag all these different cool widgets, put it together, design it, and then code is generated for you automatically. They were also asked a lot of questions when this whole hype cycle was going on about the future of Flutter as to what is going to happen with Flutter. Okay, so this is their response. You can see it on their website as well. They are also saying it is open source, right? And even in the absence of Google, other organizations will step up and significant investments in Flutter. So others will step up because there is a lot of interest and investment in Flutter. So even if Google were to step away, it will still continue, is the message that they're giving, right? This is from Flutter. And then there's plenty of articles. I won't go into all of these things. You can look at that. The other part I wanted to say Flutter has crossed a critical mass in the ecosystem and is too big to fail right now. Whether it's just in terms of the code size, the number of widgets, the number of community members, whatever it is, it's too big to fail right now. It's crossed that particular milestone where it'll be killed once and for all. I'm not saying it'll not ever die, it's going to be ever living. Everything comes to an end. Tomorrow, 10 years later, somebody else will come up with a brand new technology. We will all move to that, right? So everything, change is eventually going to happen. But where we stand right now, we don't have to worry about it. So this is from Google I/O. There was a separate track, and Thiago was talking about React versus Flutter, right? What do you think is better from your vantage point, so to speak? So let's hear from these guys.
So as you can see, we have a lot of great Flutter customers using Flutter and having a lot of value to get out of it. And so Flutter has actually become the most popular cross-platform framework in the world, according to a recent survey.
Right, so this is from a public survey, and Google published this in Google I/O.
Looking at our pillars and our announcements.
I think that's a good idea. So we have 5 pillars, 5 announcements. Let's talk about the pillars first. First, Flutter is portable. You can run your phone across 6 platforms: iOS, Android, desktop, and
All
the
the way
web.
on this, right?
And Flutter helps you build beautiful applications by giving you control over every pixel. And you can use the platform called with Material, for example, or you can create brand-specific experience. Flutter is fast. We compile either code on ARM, x86, RISC-V, JavaScript, and one more to talk about in a little bit. And for developers, Flutter is productive. So stateful hot reload gives you instant changes without changing the state of your app. And we have great developer tools and code analysis with Dart.
And finally, Flutter is open. It's open source since the beginning. We have a spectacular community, right?
So the reason why I put that is they had almost a 60-minute session on a separate Flutter track at Google I/O recently to talk about exactly what we're all worried about, what investments are going to happen across these different pillars. All of this is available on YouTube, so I won't play the whole thing. But the last point he mentioned is the power of community. And this is the power of community as well, right? So why is this so important, right? Whether it is just making the platform better or the framework better, or whether it is spreading the word, or I'll talk about a lot of ways in which you guys can help as well. But before I do that, I'll tell you about things that are happening around the world where people are investing their time and effort into it. Right? So this is a little party that we did after Google I/O in Mountain View in the Google office. And you can see a lot of Googlers in here. If you can spot me here, let me see if you can spot me here. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is most of these guys were flown into Mountain View from all over the world to be part of Google I/O, right? And if Google didn't care about Flutter or Dart, why would they make that investment? People came from all corners, from India, from Europe, from Japan, from China, everywhere. People from all over the world are now part of this big scale. This is an event that is coming up in 3 weeks. It is part of ProyectCon. I'll be there as well. It happens in Berlin every year during the summer, usually during the July 4th weekend. And you can see, this year I'm not speaking, last year I spoke, but you can see a lot of these people with all sorts of topics, whether it is projects that they're working on, whether it's widgets, and whether it's related to APIs. A lot of common pain points are addressed in these sessions. Why should people invest 3 days of effort into talking about Dart and Flutter, and where thousands of people flow in from all over, talk about it? That again shows you that it is here to stay. This is another one called Flutter and Friends. This is happening in Stockholm. I don't know if any of you saw Flutter Ninjas. It happened in Tokyo this week. It was not a big event, still 100 people from all over the world was part of that. And then even in India, there was a Flutter India conference last year that happened in Bangalore. I don't know if any of you went for it, but that was an event, and probably 800 people attended it. I don't know if they're going to do it again this year, but India is probably the biggest community of Flutter developers, but I don't think we have enough events where the community can come together, so I think we should fix that. And then this is the Flutter Ninjas one that I just told you about, which happened this week. So, like I said earlier, every one of you here is a big part of the future of Flutter, right? And a big part of the success of Flutter, whether it is simple things like learning Flutter, encouraging your friends and your companies to use Flutter, or Dart for that matter. Those are simple things that you can do, and then you can become a GD if you like. You can do talks like this, help people make the platform better. There's so many ways to do it. And the so many ways to do it is what I tried to list here. Again, you don't have to go into all of these. I already spoke about learn, build. And the build part was something that we did beautifully in the last session. We just picked up a piece of code and all of you started learning it. And you walk away from here saying, oh, I can do some animation with Flutter. That's the learning part. And then if any of you are interested in learning more about Google Developer Experts, which is, I would encourage at least a few of you who are really invested in Flutter and Dart to look at that program, apply for it. It has a lot of perks for you personally in the community, and Google takes care of you guys by flying you around to all these different events and whatnot. And they take good care of the GDs because they're essentially the ambassadors in the community, right? So if you're not aware of the Google Developer Expert, it's not just for Flutter. If you just search Google Developer Expert in Google, it'll show across the different technologies. You can be a GDE in Firebase, you can be a GDE in Kotlin, for example, whatever it is, right? That's something you can do. Spread the word. Spread the word that Flutter is here to stay. Spread the word that hey, it's probably the best framework out there. Ask your companies to look into it. Those are the things that you can do. Help others in the community. I think you're already doing that. Contribute to issues, conduct events, help Justin and others to do more of these events. From another town in Tamil Nadu or elsewhere. Try to do some of these more satellite events there. Spread the word again. It doesn't have to be an in-person meetup every time. A lot of times during COVID, I did a bunch of online meetups as well. If you do online meetups, actually the advantage is a lot more people from all over the world can join in meetups. So if you're not able to do it in person, try even online. So it doesn't have to be too fancy. Just do a 1 hour meetup with 2 people, talking. A lot of people will show up. Participate in events which you're doing, and then all of that kind of thing. So these are some of the GDEs who were early adopters of Flutter from India. Right? And Pawan, you should really read his story. He had absolutely no idea what to do. He ran into Flutter. It's changed his whole life with what he has become. He's built his own learning company on Flutter, and he teaches a lot of people. He's a very humble, down-to-earth GDE, and an inspiration for so many people from India. Same thing with Pooja as well. She's now in Flutter Flow. She's part of the dev team at Flutter Flow. Anytime you reach out to Pooja or Pawan, both of them are super helpful in what they can do to help you. And then I know Bruno, I'm not very familiar with Pawan, but I just put some samples here of people whom you can look up to see. If you're interested in becoming a GDE, just look up the journey through these people. And then back to the original guy.
We need to please the public investors and start turning a profit. And normally, when large companies have an urgency to turn a profit, the first teams that get laid off are teams that are not directly generating revenue or contributing to the bottom line. Flutter, Dart, and Python, these are internal tools, these are internal initiatives that can bolster the ecosystem, but don't actually drive revenue. They don't make money selling Flutter. They don't make money licensing Dart. This is just stuff they do for the community to make the world a better place because they have a ton of money and a ton of revenue and need to reinvest that. So this was one of the initiatives that Google took on. And the good thing about all this is that Flutter is open source, which means it's available for everyone to use. It's all the source code, all the underlying foundation of Flutter is available on GitHub. You can literally just go to Flutter open source, and we can go find the GitHub repository for Flutter, and this is going to give us all the underlying source code of Flutter, so that the community, anybody, me, you, so you can actually access the Flutter GitHub repository and see all the underlying source code. And this is really good because now you or me can contribute to Flutter and help it get to the next level. There are a lot of programming frameworks out there that are open source, that are community driven. So if you're thinking that this is the end of Flutter and you don't need to use Flutter Flow anymore, you need to stop where you are right now and realize that this is okay. This just...
So, a lot of what I said is what he's repeating as well, right? So what are the key takeaways from this particular topic, if you will, right? Events like the recent employee cuts at Google or anywhere else are bound to happen. I mean, in today's day and age, you should never be surprised about layoffs, right? I mean, it's just part and parcel of life. But I think we just overreacted a little bit just because we are part of the community and like, oh, what's going to happen without understanding what really went on behind the scenes. Right? So the second part is we stressed out in 2 minutes already. Flutter is open source. It's code is available to you. You can actually fork the entire code base and start your own company if you will. Right? That's how open it is. Right? So its future is with each one of you. That is important. Then, if you really think that that's where your career is, that's where you want to spend your time, and show it. Right? I mean, and we talked about the different ways of showing it in the community as well. There's so many ways to contribute, and you can learn and learn from it as well if you put the time and effort into it, much like anything else. So, my summary or key takeaway is Flutter is here to stay. I don't think you guys have anything to worry about. It's one of the best frameworks out there. Like you heard from the survey, I mean, nobody from Google is saying that, it's from a survey. A lot of people from the other communities and frameworks are moving into Flutter. And the number of apps being written in Flutter over the last 2-3 years is a real true testament to the popularity of Flutter that is out there. Okay. So with that, I will stop. Take any questions if you like, or if you've had enough of me, I will stop right here. Okay, thank you.